been using Claude Cowork a ton over the last 4 months. And in that time, I found 7 tips that could completely change the way that you work with AI agents like Claude Cowork. First one is something that almost nobody knows, and it can save you from losing everything. By the end of the video, you'll know how to set up projects the right way, pick the perfect model for every task, and use features that most people haven't even touched yet. If you watch my original Claude Cowork tips video from March, a lot has changed. Anthropic has shipped projects, a new model lineup, dispatch, and a whole backup system. So this is the updated, condensed, everything that you need to know update video. Let's start with the one that surprised me the most. So everything in Claude Cowork, your projects, your scheduled tasks, your chat history, your settings, it all lives locally on your computer. This is not in the cloud the way that Claude Chat is. This is all living on your device. So if your computer crashes or you lose your data for some reason, everything in Claude Cowork is going to be gone. So there's a couple of things you can do to make sure that you don't lose your data. If you're on a Mac like I am, you can back up to iCloud to make sure that everything is backed up and you never lose everything that's on Claude Cowork. You can also back up to an external hard drive using Time Machine through the Mac OS. And this is another thing that I definitely recommend doing. But just in general, just know that just because you're using the Claude app doesn't mean that everything is going to be in the cloud the way that you might assume it is, because that's how ChatGPT and Claude Chat are. So just know that and make sure that you're backing up your files on your computer, because that's where all of the work that you create is living on Claude Cowork. And this isn't something that you want to wait until it breaks to find out. Be proactive and get ahead on this now. Projects are the biggest update to Cowork since launch, and most people are still not using them. A project is a container that holds everything that Claude needs for a recurring area of work. You can save your local folders, your local files, repeatable instructions, useful links, a store of memory, and even knowledge from your Claude AI chat projects, so you can bring them together as well. To create one, go to your Cowork tab, go to Projects, and then click New Project. From here, you can either start from scratch, import a project from a project we made in chat, as I mentioned before, to Cowork, or use an existing folder. So this is a folder on our local machine that you just want to use as a project. I usually select use an existing folder because I have things organized on my computer for that. But starting from scratch, you can also do very easily. You add the name, instructions, you add files that you want to be a part of your project, and then you choose your project location. So for example, let's say I want to have a project for no-code MBA marketing. We could add custom instructions, which I don't have right now in this demo project. But then we can also add a folder with a lot of content and context that we want this project to have. Now, every time we start a session within this project, it is going to have all of the information and context of this project itself and everything that we added. The other thing that's cool is memory. So memory is going to be scoped to this project. So anything we ask it to remember is going to be specifically remembered inside of this project. And this is where things get really powerful and helpful, because you can have different projects and Claude is going to remember different things about each one automatically. And then this instructions field, this is where you can put standing guidance, repeatable instructions. So something like always cite sources or format outputs as markdown. This is where you want to put that in the instructions folder here. And these get applied to every single session automatically. It's just going to be added to the system prompt that Claude sees every single time inside of this project. This is where Cowork goes from just a chat tool to a real workflow tool. And once your projects are set up, you don't have to keep re-explaining yourself every single time. The next tip is picking the right model for the task. This is where I see people wasting the most credits or the most usage in their account, especially if you're not on the max plan, the $200 plan. If you're on that, you probably don't have to worry too much. It's going to be hard to hit your limits. But if you're on the $20 a month plan, you can easily hit your limits if you're not careful. And that's going to stop you from working altogether inside of Cowork. A lot of people pick Opus for every single task, burn through their limit, and then they can't do anything for the rest of the day. I'm going to give you a simple framework so you could think about which model to use. Now, Fable is currently not available. I'm really hoping it gets released soon. Maybe by the time this video is out, Fable will be back. So I'm going to talk briefly about it, but I'm also going to focus on the ones that are available. So Haiku is your quick task model. It's great for summaries, classifications, simple extractions. If it takes you 10 seconds to do a task, Haiku is a good one for you. This is super cheap. It's going to use up barely any of your usage at all. Sonnet, I think, is underused compared to Opus. So a lot of people choose Opus for everything. Sonnet is still a really, really powerful and good model. and you don't want to overlook it. It's like your daily workhorse. It's really great for writing, for analysis, even for multi-step workflows, agentic tasks. It's very powerful and very capable. And it's going to use also a lot less of your usage than Opus. So it's definitely still a really good solution. I think Sonnet is where you should spend 80% of your tokens, unless you're on one of the max plans, $200 plan, $100 plan, where you're not going to hit your limits, or it's going to be very hard to hit your limits. That's where Opus comes in. It's for deeper reasoning, complex tasks. If you needed to do really deep research across a lot of different sources, Opus is going to be smarter and more powerful. So you just kind of think of it, okay, what kind of task am I doing? So use Opus when something is genuinely hard. Maybe 15% Opus, 80% Sonnet, 5% Haiku. Now, Fable, this is designed for long autonomous sessions. So let's say you have a task, you want it to run for 2 hours, an hour, and do a ton of research or do a ton of building. That's where Fable comes in. Like, it's going to use even more credits than Opus. So this is going to really burn through your usage. Again, I hope it comes back. I really loved building in it, so I hope it comes back. And by the time this video is released, maybe you'll be able to use Fable inside of Cowork. The other thing you need to know about is effort. So effort is basically another kind of knob you have on how much usage you're going to use. First of all, you can turn thinking on and off, which is going to use more tokens, and then you can go from low all the way to max in terms of using tokens. I typically will be on medium or high. Again, it's kind of a vibe thing. It's a little bit hard to know exactly what to do, but just, if you're doing a task and, medium doesn't get the job done, then you can bump it up. But again, it kind of just depends on the complexity of your task. Here's a tip that a lot of people don't know is you can actually switch models within a session. So I could start with Opus, but then I could switch to Sonnet later on in the chat to save tokens. One more thing you should know about effort is that Anthropic specifically recommends adding high effort or higher effort for agentic or coding tasks. So it gives you more intelligence without jumping to a more expensive model. So this is specifically for more agentic tasks, so you need it to make a lot of decisions. The next tip is around connecting external data sources. This was tip number 2 in my original video, and it's still one of the most powerful features, but the connector library has grown significantly since March. You can connect Gmail, Slack, Google Calendar, Figma, Google Drive, and dozens more. And then there's also specialized connectors like Data for SEO, Apollo for lead generation, and tools for accessing analytics platforms. So there's a ton that you can connect here. And every connection is just going to give more capabilities to Claude Cowork. So one thing you do need to be aware of is some connectors require API credits from third-party services. So if you connect Data for SEO, for example, you're going to be paying for those API calls on top of your Claude subscription. So you want to make sure you know what you're getting yourself into when you connect to different tools. I personally use the Data for SEO connector all the time to do SEO research for my sites. The next tip is about queuing messages and running parallel tasks. So this is a small tip that makes a big difference in how much you can get done. So right now I have 2 chats going. One is about no code MBA SEO research, and one is about YouTube channel new video research. These are happening in parallel, which can multiply the productivity that you can do. You don't have to wait for one session to stop for the next one to go. This is really helpful. The other thing is you don't have to wait for Claude to finish before sending your next message. While the task is running, we can queue up additional messages. It gets added to the queue, and then Claude handles them in order after the task is finished. So we could be in this YouTube channel video idea and say, next, can you please also tell me YouTube video titles I should update? And we can queue that, and it'll get to that next. So once you start doing this, you become the orchestrator of Claude Cowork. You're going to be observing tasks, adjusting instructions, and managing the outputs. And you could have 5 or 10 chats happening at once. And this is where I'm spending a lot of my time these days, is kind of being an orchestrator inside of these AI tools and updating them and managing them as they go. But the key is having parallel tasks going at once. The next tip is to use Dispatch. Dispatch allows you to use Claude from your phone and connect to your computer so you can hand off tasks to Claude and then pick up where you left off when you get back to your computer. So you can pair your phone, and this brings Claude just from something that you can use while you're sitting at your desk to something that you can use to get real work done while you're away from your computer. The next thing that you need to know about with Cowork is schedule tasks. This allows you to run tasks on a schedule or whenever you need them. To set one up, you can just use the / command, typing /schedule into any existing task to set one up. And what this does is going to run on that schedule. So for example, I have a task running for weekly YouTube ideas, and it'll create instructions for that task, and then it'll save the result to your local computer. And you can do this with a lot of different things, but I like it for things like weekly research tasks or daily briefs is a really great thing to set up. One thing to know is that it will only run while your computer is on, because this is all running on your local computer, like I mentioned before. So that's something to be aware of. The last tip is about building skills that load automatically. So here we are in the skills panel. Skills are reusable custom instructions that Claude loads automatically when relevant. And it works across Claude Cowork, Claude Chat, and Claude Code. So the same skill will work across the entire Claude ecosystem. But here's what most people get wrong about skills. You might think skills are just saved prompts, but skills are actually files that give Claude specific, detailed knowledge about what you want to get done. You can also add files like scripts, coding scripts, things like that can be added into the skill folder, and they load automatically based on context. And that's what I think is so cool, is that the agent is going to load them if it thinks it would be relevant for you. To create one, you can literally just ask Claude in the chat and say, I want to create a skill. So for example, I have a skill that I created. This is for a previous video actually, but it's a good example of a baseball team newsletter skill. So as you can see here, it created step-by-step instructions of exactly what to do, including what tools to use. This is another really important thing. This is going to connect to the tools that we have to gather fresh info from a web search, and then it's going to write a newsletter on any baseball team and then deliver the file to us. This really compounds over time. And what's really nice about skills is if you get a result, you can say, hey, I like this, but I actually want you to improve this about the skill in the future task. And this is how your agent is going to keep getting better and better over time. So those are the 7 tips. If you want to stay ahead of every Claude update, subscribe to our daily AI brief newsletter at nocode.mba/newsletter. You can click the link in the description. It's a 2-minute read every morning that covers exactly what changed in AI that day. I read it every single morning, and I think if you watch this video, you're going to enjoy it as well. Let me know in the comments what you think of this video, what you think of Claude Cowork, and I'm curious what you think of Cowork versus maybe some of the other agentic tools out there. What are you using and getting the most value out of? And subscribe to our channel to get more free AI videos in the future. Things are changing so quickly. I'm doing my best to share everything I learn with you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.